picture this. It is January 1st. You wake up feeling incredibly inspired, right? Just buzzing with this fresh sense of possibility.
Oh, yeah, that classic clean slate feeling.
Exactly. You sit down at your desk, you pull out a brand new notebook, and you write down this massive, ambitious New Year's resolution.
The big one.
Right. You tell yourself, starting today, I am going to exercise for an hour every single morning, and I am going to memorize 50 complex English vocabulary words every single night.
Wow, 50 words. That's intense.
It is. And the intention is entirely pure. You're riding this massive wave of optimism, completely convinced that this is the year everything changes.
We've all been there.
Right. So day 1, you absolutely crush it. Day 2, you push through the fatigue. Day 3, you only manage about half of your list. And by day 4.
Day 4 is usually where it falls apart.
Yeah, you completely give up. You just abandon the plan entirely, toss the notebook in a drawer somewhere, and you're left sitting there feeling this deep sense of guilt, just wondering why you lack the fundamental willpower to stick to your own goals.
It's a really heavy feeling.
It really is. And that's exactly what we are diving deep into today. We've got a stack of notes and curriculum from this really fantastic channel called A Corner English.
Yeah, specifically looking at a module they call Daily Healing English, right?
Exactly. The topic is the magic of microhabits, small steps, big change. And our mission for this deep dive is, well, it's twofold. First, we're going to unpack the psychological comfort, really the healing aspect of why you fail at big goals, kind of soothing that anxiety we all harbor about our own productivity.
It's so needed. We're all so hard on ourselves.
We really are. And second, we're going to simultaneously guide you through absorbing some essential English vocabulary embedded right inside these concepts. The pace today is going to be relaxed. It's meant to be inviting.
I love that approach. Learning doesn't have to be, a high-stress environment.
Exactly. So, okay, let's unpack this. Our sources suggest that the traditional way we view our failure to keep a New Year's resolution is fundamentally backwards.
Totally backwards.
Like we internalize it as a character flaw, right? We just assume we're lazy. But in reality, something entirely different is happening under the hood.
Yeah, we constantly mistake biological programming for a lack of moral fortitude. We assume that if we just cared more, we would stick to the flashcards and the treadmill.
Right.
But what's fascinating here is that the failure has absolutely nothing to do with a lack of willpower. It is an innate biological defense mechanism kicking in.
Wait, really? A defense mechanism?
Yes. The human brain is, at its core, this highly efficient energy conservation machine. I mean, it evolved to keep us alive in environments where resources were super scarce.
Oh, sure. Caveman days.
Exactly. Because of that, the brain fundamentally despises sudden, massive changes to your routine.
It hates them.
It interprets a drastic shift, even a seemingly positive one, like suddenly burning an extra 600 calories a day on a treadmill.
Or demanding massive cognitive output to memorize vocabulary.
Yes, exactly. It sees those things as a biological threat. Your brain thrives on homeostasis. It wants equilibrium. It wants predictability.
Okay, let me just test my understanding of this mechanism here. You're saying that when I suddenly implement a massive life change, my brain doesn't see, like, a healthier, smarter version of me in the future.
Yeah, at all.
It sees a sudden, unexplained drain on my caloric and cognitive reserves, and all the alarm bells start ringing.
Loud and clear.
So it basically treats my sudden burst of self-improvement like a physiological crisis. It's actively trying to force me to stop to conserve energy.
That is the biological reality. See, for the first few days of a new goal, you are running on this highly volatile fuel called motivation.
Right, that January 1st buzz.
Exactly. Motivation is an emotional state. It's a spike in certain neurochemicals that makes you feel excited and capable. But the thing is, motivation is an incredibly fragile, finite resource.
It burns out rapidly.
So rapidly. And once that initial spark of motivation fades, you are left fighting your own survival programming. And biology almost always wins that fight.
Because it's hardwired into us.
Right. Your brain literally shuts down the new behavior to protect your energy reserves, leaving you feeling just completely frustrated and defeated.
I want to push back a little on the traditional self-help narrative here.
Yeah.
Because we are constantly bombarded with messaging that says, dream big, set audacious goals, and shoot for the moon.
Constantly. It's everywhere.
But based on the biological reality you just described, setting a massive goal is essentially picking a fight with your own nervous system.
It's a fight you're probably going to lose.
Right. So our sources suggest the only way to bypass the brain's threat detection system is by using what they call microhabits.
Yes, microhabits.
And the Acorner English curriculum uses a very specific phrase that I just find brilliant. They say a microhabit must be stupid small.
I love that phrasing, stupid small.
If a goal is not stupid small, you're basically leaving a crack open for your brain's defense mechanisms to slip in and shut you down.
Exactly. Stupid small is the perfect operational definition here. It refers to an action so microscopic, so completely devoid of difficulty, that failing to do it is actually harder than doing it.
Oh, wow. Harder to fail than to succeed.
Yeah, because by shrinking the scope of the action that much, you completely bypass the amygdala, which is the brain's threat detector.
Okay, let's apply that to a practical scenario from the text.
Yeah.
The traditional doomed goal is, I will run 5 kilometers today.
Right. The big New Year's resolution.
The normal, well-meaning person might try to scale that back and say, okay, that's too much. I will just run 1 kilometer.
Still too big.
Exactly. According to our notes, 1 kilometer is still not stupid small.
Yeah.
The actual microhabit is simply, I will put on my running shoes.
Yeah.
That is the entire goal. Or, if you want to read a massive, dense novel, the microhabit isn't reading a chapter. It's not even reading for 5 minutes. It's reading exactly 1 page. Just 1. When you present that goal to yourself, your brain assesses the energy requirement and determines it to be near 0.
The alarm bells remain entirely silent.
It's amazing.
The perceived cost of execution is so low that the brain's defense mechanisms are never triggered. But there's a secondary, equally important mechanism at play here.
Oh, makes that.
It's not just about avoiding the biological alarms. It's about actively manipulating the brain's reward circuitry.
Okay, so if massive goals are treated like invading threats by our biology, how does the brain react chemically when we feed it one of these stupid small tasks?
I mean, it loves them.
I'm assuming this relies heavily on the neurochemical feedback loops mentioned in the Daily Healing English notes, right?
You're right on the money. It relies entirely on the dopamine pathway. Whenever you complete a task that you have consciously set out to do, your brain registers it as a successful interaction with your environment.
Okay.
And to reinforce that successful behavior, it releases dopamine.
The famous dopamine hit.
Exactly. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that serves as the brain's primary reward signal. It creates this profound sense of satisfaction, pleasure, and competence.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The curriculum introduces this psychological barrier called resistance.
Resistance, yes. This is a big one.
I want to visualize this for you, the listener.
Right.
Imagine your grand, overarching goal. Let's say it is achieving total fluency in the English language.
A huge goal.
Massive. That goal is like a sheer vertical cliff face of a massive mountain. When you stand at the bottom of that mountain and just stare up at the peak, the resistance you feel is like a physical weight in your chest.
You can literally feel it in your body.
Yeah. It's daunting. It requires immense mental heavy lifting, and the sheer scale of the friction makes you want to turn around and retreat right back to your comfort zone.
That resistance is the brain calculating the activation energy required to even begin the climb.
Right.
With massive goals, the required activation energy is so astronomically high that procrastination becomes the most biologically logical response.
Wow, so procrastination is logical to the brain.
Completely.
But a microhabit fundamentally alters that physical landscape. A microhabit is not a mountain. It is just a tiny stone sitting on the ground in front of you.
Just a little pebble.
Exactly. Moving a tiny stone creates almost zero resistance. You never feel a heavy, daunting urge to run away from a pebble.
Right, you don't need a pep talk to pick up a stone.
You simply bend down and pick it up. It requires no mental heavy lifting whatsoever. And by shrinking the task down to that pebble, we are solving the single most difficult part of any endeavor, which is the act of starting.
The friction of initiation is where 99% of goals die.
99%.
But once you eliminate that friction by making the task stupid small, this fascinating psychological shift occurs. You pick up the pebble, you read the single page, or you put on your running shoes.
And then what?
You immediately receive a small hit of dopamine because you successfully completed the stated goal. This creates a loop of what the source text calls small wins.
Small wins. Those act as the new fuel source.
Yes.
Instead of draining your energy like a massive goal does, these small wins actually generate energy. They provide the positive reinforcement necessary to keep going.
To keep going, exactly.
I think about this in the context of the listener's own language journey. Staring at the mountain of English grammar rules and vocabulary lists can induce complete paralysis.
It's overwhelming.
But what if you just focus on the tiny stone today? What if your only goal for the next 24 hours is, I will listen to just 1 minute of an English podcast.
Setting the bar at 1 minute completely neutralizes the resistance.
Just 1 minute.
The activation energy is negligible. Yet by hitting play and listening for 60 seconds, you secure the small win. You get the dopamine release.
And I imagine very often, once the audio is playing, the friction of starting is gone, and you just naturally decide to keep listening.
That happens all the time. But the critical point is that even if you turn it off right at the 60-second mark, you still won.
You still kept the habit alive.
Exactly. You showed up.
Okay, so we have established the biological rationale here. We know why our brains panic at massive changes, and we understand how dopamine loops and small wins bypass our internal resistance.
The foundation is set.
But the notes from A Corner English pivot into the architectural mechanics of actually living this out.
The practical application.
Right. We all have chaotic, busy lives filled with jobs, family obligations, and just pure exhaustion. A tiny pebble is great in theory, but how do we structurally integrate these microscopic habits into our day without simply forgetting they exist?
It's a great question. And the curriculum provides 2 highly actionable structural rules for embedding these micro habits right into the chaos of daily life.
Let's hear them.
The first is a widely recognized behavioral tool called the 2-minute rule.
I found the explanation of the 2-minute rule in our sources incredibly compelling, because it addresses cognitive load.
Exactly.
The rule dictates that if an action takes less than 2 minutes to complete, you should never schedule it, write it down, or push it off. You must execute it immediately in that exact moment.
The underlying logic there is based on the mental bandwidth required to manage incomplete tasks.
It takes energy to remember things.
So much energy. The psychological effort it takes to remember to review, say, 3 English vocabulary words later in the evening, to hold that task in your working memory all day, it actually consumes more neural resources than just reviewing the words right now.
Wow. So the overhead of planning the task outweighs the execution of the task itself. If your micro habit is to write down 1 English sentence, that takes, 45 seconds?
Taps.
By doing it immediately, you clear the cognitive cache. But the second technique mentioned in the notes is where the real architectural genius lies, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
The source material calls it habit stacking.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of neurobiology, we really have to look at the physical structure of your brain.
Okay.
Over the course of your life, you have built dozens of deeply ingrained behaviors, things you do every single day on pure autopilot.
Like waking up.
Waking up, boiling water for coffee, brushing your teeth, locking the front door. In your brain, these routines are like massive multi-lane neural superhighways.
Superhighways, I like that.
The connections are thick, they're fast, and they require absolutely zero conscious effort to navigate.
The text uses the keyword routine to describe these superhighways. They are the bedrock of our day.
Yes.
Contrast that with a brand new microhabit, which is essentially a faint, dusty trail in the woods, right? It's fragile. The neural pathway barely exists.
It's so easily overgrown.
Yeah. If you try to just drop a new microhabit randomly into the middle of your afternoon, that fragile trail is going to get lost in the overwhelming demands of your day.
Habit stacking solves this by taking your fragile, brand new behavior and physically anchoring it to the massive neural superhighway of an existing routine.
Right.
You use the established behavior as the unmissable trigger for the new behavior.
The source text gives a brilliantly grounding example of this. Brushing your teeth is the established, deeply ingrained routine.
Everyone does it.
Right. You never wake up and wonder if you have the motivation to brush your teeth. Your autopilot just handles it.
Exactly.
To utilize habit stacking, you attach a new micro habit like taking 1 intentional grounding deep breath directly to the end of that routine.
Just 1 breath.
The formula becomes this rigid if-then statement. Immediately after I put my toothbrush down, I will take 1 deep breath.
It's so simple, but you are offloading the burden of memory and discipline onto your environment.
That's the key.
The completion of the old habit becomes the firing gun for the new habit. In neuroscience, there's a saying, neurons that fire together wire together.
I've heard that.
Over time, the single deep breath becomes indistinguishable from the act of brushing your teeth.
You are essentially hijacking the brain's existing autopilot software to install new updates without needing any administrative passwords, meaning no extra willpower required.
What a great way to put it.
If your goal is to absorb more English, you look at your daily superhighways. Immediately after I pour my morning coffee, I will listen to 1 minute of English audio.
The coffee pot becomes your environmental trigger.
You don't have to remember to study. You just have to remember to drink your coffee, which you were definitely going to do anyway.
Right. The environment does the heavy lifting. You are designing a life where falling into your good habits is literally the path of least resistance.
It's so practical. But, I want to steer our conversation into the specific healing aspect of this curriculum now, because the title of the module is Daily Healing English.
It's an important pivot.
We have covered the highly practical neurochemical tactics, but we need to address the deep emotional toll of personal development.
The burnout.
The burnout. The guilt. I am asking this on behalf of every listener who has ever felt the crushing weight of a bad day.
We all have them.
What happens on the days when you come home from work, your mind is entirely depleted, your body aches, and the idea of even doing a 2-minute habit, even picking up that tiny, seemingly weightless pebble, feels like moving a mountain.
That is the most vulnerable and necessary question we can ask.
It's real life.
Because the self-improvement industry conditions us to be ruthlessly hard on ourselves, doesn't it? When we miss a day, when we inevitably falter, the guilt is immediate and toxic.
It really is.
We tell ourselves that we have ruined our progress, and that negative emotion usually causes us to abandon the effort entirely.
We just throw our hands up.
But to counter this, the Daily Healing English Notes offer this profoundly comforting, mathematically sound mantra.
I love this part.
Consistency is better than intensity.
Consistency is better than intensity. That phrase forces a complete reevaluation of how we measure success.
It changes everything.
Because we are taught to worship intensity, right? Intensity is running on the treadmill until you feel sick. Intensity is grinding through 50 vocabulary words until your eyes blur.
Which looks great on paper.
Exactly. But it is a biological recipe for burnout. It is fundamentally unsustainable. Consistency, however, requires a different kind of discipline.
It does.
It is the quiet, unglamorous act of simply showing up day after day, regardless of the scale of the effort.
This raises an important question. How harshly do you judge your own progress?
Oh, that's a good question.
Right. When you are utterly exhausted, do you view a microscopic effort as a failure? Because it wasn't a massive, intense effort.
Probably.
The psychological healing happens when you recognize the undeniable mathematical truth of showing up. If your energy reserves are totally depleted and you only accomplish 1% of your goal today...
Like if your entire English practice consists of reading a single sentence before falling asleep.
Yes, that 1% is fundamentally, objectively better than nothing, because nothing is 0%.
Better than nothing. That is our final key phrase from the curriculum, and it is arguably the most important one.
It's a lifesaver.
A 1% effort is infinitely larger than a 0% effort. When you execute that tiny 1%, you are doing something far more crucial than just learning a vocabulary word.
You're protecting the habit architecture in your brain.
You are maintaining your identity. You are sending a signal to your nervous system that says, we are still the type of person who does this. We did not quit.
You are keeping the neural pathway alive, even if the signal is really faint.
Exactly.
By viewing that 1% effort as a victory over 0, rather than a failure to reach 100, you completely eliminate that toxic spiral of guilt that usually follows a low-energy day.
So what does this all mean?
Well,
It means we have to radically dismantle the harsh, unforgiving frameworks we use to evaluate our own lives. The source material walks through a cognitive reframing exercise. And rather than just reading it, I want us to really absorb the logic behind it. When you feel the guilt creeping in because you didn't conquer the world today, you have to actively remind yourself of the biology we just discussed.
the homeostasis, the threat response.
Right. You have to tell yourself, I do not need to fight my amygdala today. I do not need to scale the sheer cliff face. I just need to pick up the smallest possible stone.
You validate the approach by acknowledging that the small wins are not just enough. They are the only biologically sustainable way to create lasting change.
You give yourself the grace to acknowledge that showing up, even for a single minute, is a mathematical victory over doing nothing at all.
It's so freeing.
It removes the heavy armor of perfectionism. It allows you to breathe.
It really does.
As we bring this deep dive to a close, let's map out the journey we have taken through the 8-corner English notes today. We started by dismantling the myth of the failed New Year's resolution.
The one we always give up on.
Right. We discovered that when we give up on those massive goals, It is not a flaw in our character, but rather our brain's survival instinct protecting us from a sudden, massive drain on our energy reserves.
To circumvent that biological panic, we abandon those traditional intimidating goals and embrace the concept of making our actions stupid small.
Stupid small. Duh. We utilize the brain's own chemistry, securing a release of dopamine through consistent small wins, which effectively neutralize the heavy resistance that usually blocks us from taking action in the first place.
And to ensure those actions survive the chaos of real life, we looked at the structural architecture of action. We bypass cognitive load by applying the 2-minute rule, and we utilize habit stacking to anchor our fragile new behaviors to the massive neural superhighways of our daily routine.
And finally, we address the emotional reality of exhaustion, cementing the idea that on our worst days, a focus on consistency provides a healing grace, proving that a tiny 1% effort is always better than nothing.
You are learning how to expand your mind while simultaneously being profoundly kind to it.
That's a beautiful way to say it. It is a remarkable synthesis of neurobiology and self-compassion.
The mechanics ensure your success, and the mindset ensures your well-being.
Before we officially sign off, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you navigate the rest of your day.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have spent this time exploring how your stubborn, highly protective brain can be so effortlessly tricked into achieving success simply by shrinking a terrifying, life-altering goal into a microscopic, stupid, small action. So I want you to look around at the landscape of your life right now. Look beyond the context of learning English. Look at the things that are weighing heavily on your mind.
The big mountains.
The big mountains. What other seemingly impossible mountains in your life, perhaps that massive creative project you are too scared to start, that chaotic room you have been avoiding, or that complex, difficult conversation you need to have, are actually just waiting to be picked up as small stones?
Just waiting to be picked up.
Thank you for exploring with us today. Keep gathering those small wins, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.